All right, welcome to AIRE Latinx, the AI Resource Exchange. I'm Ruby Garcia, I'm a leadership coach, and I'm here with my co-host, Yovana Rosales, who is the founder of AI Latina, and God bless you. Welcome back, everyone. It's great to be back in your company. Last week we were having or 2 weeks ago we were having a little bit of technical difficulties. It looks like it's kind of happening again, but we're gonna do this thing and we're gonna move past it. So we hope that you're doing well. If you're listening in, feel free to drop in the chat where you're listening in from. We love to know. And so drop in the state that you're listening in from. And let's get started with today, where we're talking about different things going on in the AI world. And there have been a lot of changes these last few weeks, and things are moving very quickly. Yovana, you want to come and say hello?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Great to be back. Kind of sucks with the technical difficulties, but we'll get through it. We did last time. We will today as well. Ruby, I don't know if we closed out the topic of last week. I know that you had put up, or no, actually, it wasn't you. It was a colleague of mine. Her name's Myrtle. She had posted up a statistic about women and beauty and Latina women and beauty. And I know we had touched upon that a few weeks ago last time we were on. So I don't know if we wanted to open up that up as well, or talk about some different updates within the AI world, because we know that there's a major one that just happened this morning. And so I don't know if those are the two that you want to focus on.
I don't even know if I know about that one. I've been on calls since 8:30 this morning. So I'm excited to hear this. Yeah, we can. I mean, yes, and thanks for everyone who chimed in last week. I think it was a really great conversation. Let's start there, and then we can move into some of the other things there. But there was this study done last week. I'm pulling up some of the statistics right now, but when we're thinking about self-care, when we're thinking about the pressures that Latinas are facing in the experience, 62% of Latinas feel pressure to be beautiful. And they also feel a lot of pressure around being successful in their either academic journeys or in their careers. And over half of Latinas feel pressure, just family pressure and work pressure, both. So I think, one of the great shifts that I think I've seen is, this moving away from ni de aquí, ni de allá, and kind of embracing this 200%er, soy de aquí, soy de allá. But on the downside with that, like, there are some positives with kind of embracing both dual identities. But I think one of the challenges is that there's also these dual pressures. And I think that's what Myrtle was talking about in the post, and what I've been sharing in a couple of my newsletters too, is that it's difficult when you're trying to kind of hang on to some of our cultural, trying to hang on to some of our culture, but then also kind of reclaim our spaces. What I would say is more of a modern day Latina, right? Living in this day and age that we are in now.
Yeah, and I think we also have to give ourselves grace when we talk about this type of topic. And so, yeah, the post that she had posted, which is the same thing that you were saying, Ruby, her source is from ABC News. 62% of Latinas say Hispanic women face pressure to be beautiful by dressing nicely or wearing makeup, is what the study had found. And I just want us to have grace and not be so hard on ourselves a lot of the time. And the reason why I say that is because even that within itself is a generational hump that we have to try to get over. My grandmother was a very important figure in my life. We had a very turbulent relationship, and beauty was, I mean, if not number one, it was definitely up there with the cooking. And then came the children. But I think beauty was actually her number one thing. And so I was actually having this conversation with my prima. We had gone out of town when we had that long weekend. And we talked about how traumatizing that is. As much as we embrace it and we're here for the skin beauty and we're here for the skin routine, there's also a lot of trauma behind it, because if you start really asking the stories and asking those hard questions about your family history, you'll see that at times it can be bleak. And so, and I say that to say, because like that's what happened to my grandmother. My grandmother, no matter how you slice it, the raw reality was she was married to my grandfather due to her beauty, because her beauty was going to get them out of poverty. That's the truth. And so when you try to fight that, it's right. It was her beauty that got us out of it. And how was she able to keep herself beauty by doing all these like holistic menjurjes? And so it's like, yes, embrace that, but let's take away all that other trauma that came from not only being and the definition of what beautiful is, right? Milky
Yeah, for
skin,
sure.
silky hair. She was very, very white complected. So she was right, like she was la blanquita de la familia. So she was gonna save them. So it's just, and I understand, like it's hard. It's hard. And so I think just seeing our conversation that we had last week ended up inspiring me to create an AI generated natural beauty visualization. I finished it up on Friday. I'm going to start recording it next week because I have 3 other ones that I want to record. And I think it's just very important for us to remember that beauty standards aren't what my grandmother thought they were, or what she was taught that they were. There's beauty in so many of us. We all come in different shapes, forms, sizes, colors, right? We all have different raíces, and we can find beauty in the naturaleza, and let's not forget that. And so I'm really excited to put out this visualization in a few weeks. I'm really excited. Like I read it to myself and I just felt very like humbled and complete, and being like, thank you, grandma, for everything you've done. But also now it's my turn to take my route.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And that level of self-acceptance can really change how we, not only how we view ourselves, but how we show up in the world too. And so I think that's really important. One of the things that I was just made me think of too is, when we relate beauty kind of to AI, I think about how many times I've gone into, create images for newsletters or looking for stock images. Mostly when I create images, I'll put in something like, I'll put in a prompt about like, create an image with a Latina, doing XYZ or something like that. But it's interesting to see the images of Latinas come up, and like through AI, because it tends to be a lot of the same. So it's always a Latina with lighter skin, usually straight or a little bit of a wave, like the beach wave, hair, thin, thin but still voluptuous. But I think it's interesting that in most all of them, and high cheekbones, most all of them, it's kind of the same flavor, so to speak, of images that are coming up. And yet when we look at Latinas, there's so much diversity, right? Like you said, we all come in different sizes, shapes, colors, hair textures. Like, so it's interesting that AI is picking to me, it's more of like an Eva Longoria or Sophia type of image, or Selma Hayek or whoever.
Yeah.
It's very much the image as opposed to any other diversity in Latinas. And I think the other thing that I think is, to me, is really interesting. I've been playing with Midjourney, which is an AI. No, it wasn't Midjourney. Actually, it wasn't Midjourney. It was a new one that was called, I can't remember. I'll have to come back to it. But it was another one that I heard was supposed to be better than Midjourney. They had more realistic pictures in terms of what and whatever images are created off of the uploads. the pictures that you initially give it. So I uploaded photos from a recent branding session because they're all really current. They were like taken at the beginning of end of March or the beginning of April. And yes, I'm wearing more makeup, but otherwise it's me, right? Yeah, exactly. I'm wearing curly hair and everything. But the images that came back to me looked, and I wish I had it right now. And because my computer and internet is being a little weird, I don't want to go in and try to figure it out right now, but I'll post them later. The images that it pulled out of me looked like a way younger version, first of all. I'm 46, and this looked like maybe like a 23-year-old version of me. But my cheekbones were really, really high, and I was really, really thin. And then for some of the full body images, I was I was big busted and had a tiny, tiny little waist. And but it looked like with all my hair that I had a really big head too, right? Big head, big bust, and like a tiny little waist. But I thought there's still what made me think was there's still some work when it comes to images. And the other thing, which I haven't played with because that particular app, I have to basically I have to reload some images now to start over and see if I can get some better output. But
Okay.
also really curious about, and I think we have not gotten there yet when it comes to some of these AI apps, is looking at diversity when it comes to abilities too. Because for me, I have my limb difference. For those of you that don't know, because you have most of the time on Zoom or on these calls, you're seeing the upper half of me, but I was born with a limb difference. So my left arm is shorter than the other ones. I can't bend my left arm. I only have 3 fingers on it. And that's still something that not like the AI isn't picking up yet. Right. So that's all, when we think about some of those other nuances, or it could be, this morning I was looking at LinkedIn and I saw someone post AI images through an app for someone who was in a wheelchair, and it was the same thing. It's like we're not quite there yet in terms of the output when it's looking at some of that diversity.
And this is what we say when it's the biases and the prejudice. It's right, like, let's hire some more diverse folks so that way they are included when it starts coming into illustration, design, not just the speaking LLMs, but the designer ones as well. And to be more accurate than non-accurate. And right now it's very non-accurate. Not all of us look like Eva. Not all of us look like Selma. And so there definitely needs to be more diversity.
I like the size 2. It's more like a size 12, but size 2 was fun.
I would love, if you have them, like if you were able to save those, I'd love to see them in a post on LinkedIn and just have a good laugh with that, but also just showing concern. Yeah. And speaking of the concerns that we see in AI today, it was just dropped that I want to read it because I want to make sure that I get this out. So AI researchers are demanding what they want to call a right to warn. Basically what it is, it's current and former employees from top AI labs, including OpenAI, Anthropic, and DeepMind, just published an open letter calling for companies to expand whistleblower protections so coworkers can raise the alarm about the potential AI dangers without fear of retaliation. The Right to Warn petition was crafted by current and former employees of OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google DeepMind. The open letter was also endorsed by AI visionaries Yoshua Bingo, Jeffrey Hinton, and Stuart Russell. The statement pushes for AI firms to agree on several principles, including eliminating non-disparagement clauses concerning AI risk, establishing and facilitating anonymous channels for raising concerns, and expanding whistleblower protections and anti-retaliation measures. So there are folks working on this technology, seeing the dangers, the potential threats, as well as dangers that can happen with these platforms, and want to start being able to talk about them and not get fired or not just get fired, but get blacklisted from these type of companies. So wanting to, yes, they understand that they want to be able to create an impact change in this booming industry that's coming along, but they also want to be very careful and want to warn about things that can happen. So this was just published today. So we shall see the buildup on this warning letter that is out there now.
Yeah, what do you think the impact is going to be?
I mean, it's tough. We've seen the big wigs not care. I wrote this in my past newsletter, how Sam Altman not too long ago had asked Scarlett Johansson if he can use her voice for OpenAI. She said no. He was able to create a voice that sounded very, very, very similar to hers, and he used it, and he's been testing it, and word got around, and she, told him to take it down, and he was like, oh yeah, okay, like no problem. But didn't apologize, never acknowledged that it was based off of her. That loss, if she decides to create a lawsuit, what is that lawsuit going to look like? What is it going to entail? And so you see, but like his story is not it's nothing different. It's nothing that we haven't heard of before. And so he's living that. And they say that in the tech in Silicon Valley, that attitude, or those type of, like that type of persona is just accepted. That's how you get to where you get to, is just by doing it, not asking people, and hopefully they don't sue you on the way.
Yeah. And, that reminds me of a lot of the deep fake pornography that's coming out, and how women are being impacted the most. They're being victims to these deep fakes. And so again, it's about representation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm curious to see how it'll play out, because there has to be, and I've been in some I've overheard some conversations, or been rooms where they're talking about, and I'm still kind of getting my grasp on it, but there's been a lot of talk about what responsible AI looks like.
Right.
And accountability.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's true. What does that look like? What did that entail? Because it would look very different for you and I compared to, well, like with Sam Altman, it's not even on the radar. It's not even his thing to work, to be living in this. And then what would it look like for the folks that are trying to get this open warning letter out? What are their fears and safety issues compared to what you and I talk about? Because that would look very different. And so maybe it's us, or let me speak for myself.
Yeah, for sure.
Going into, because I know the EU is having their laws and stuff pretty much in place and getting ready to launch. So maybe doing a deeper dive on research as to what does that look like, and are we going to follow that same protocol, or are we going to be more lenient over here?
I have a feeling we'll be more lenient, but hopefully, and this is where we need to be voicing, be using our voices to advocate for that accountability.
Or maybe the question then should have been reframed as, how more lenient are we going to be?
Yeah.
Because
and this is a good question, even within organizations, for those folks that are working within organizations that are rolling out AI. It's a good question to be asking, who's sitting on those AI boards, and what does governance look like for AI? Mm-hmm. So even with your organization, and I would say it's really important, no matter what level you are within your organization in terms of hierarchy, because everyone's going to bring a different perspective to that,
right,
based on their roles, based on their lived experiences, based on the diversity within the employees of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we should encourage people to ask those questions about how can I sit in on some of that. I was really excited last week, I'll have to look them up again, but I saw last week that Illinois actually there's a Latino man that's going to be doing a lot of the AI work at the state level. But I was excited just because, and I'll share it later on. I can look for it. I don't even want to say that I remember his name, but I thought what was really exciting was because there was going to be a diverse voice.
Right. Yeah, it should. Now I got to go do some deep diving because I was not aware of that news. But what I was going to say back to the
it was Juan Vasquez. I knew it was. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
He's been appointed. I was going to say I did find it. I thought it was Juan, but then I was like, is that too common of a name? Am I just picking that out? Juan, who was appointed to serve as a member of the Generative AI and Natural Language Processing Task Force for the governor's office for the state of Illinois. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
To see some Latino representation.
Cool. Yeah. I'm going to have to Google him and then just find him on LinkedIn and see what the updates are for the state of Illinois. Yeah. Because then even that means if rules and regulations are going to start being implemented in the state of Illinois and you have a business in the state of Illinois, you have to make sure that you're doing your due diligence to not get fined, not get shut down, not get citations, not have lawsuits. Like, this is very important. So it's great that it's happening and that we're up and coming here in the state of Illinois, but it's also, as a business owner, that's something else that you have to be on top of.
Exactly. And going back to my question about, what your organization is doing, I just want to bring up too, that Dr. Cindy Gordon and ASE just put out a white paper as well about AI. And I have the question here because I want to make sure that I also didn't misspeak or misinterpret. But they did and out of 50 partner organizations, when they asked whether DE&I was involved in strategic plans for AI, not one single person said they were part of the initiative. And that's a huge problem.
How many people were in that?
How
many people were in that board or in that meeting?
In the meeting, there was 50 organizations. It was a hybrid meeting, so some people in person, some people virtual, but there were 50 organizations represented, and they were mostly like CDOs, chief diversity officers. And when asked if they were part of strategic plans or data governance or risk councils, if they were sitting on any of those boards for AI within the organizations, there were 0% represented.
That's alarming.
That is extremely alarming because, most of the organizations, that I know of that they, the ASE works with our larger organizations as well, right? And so that says that we're not even part of the conversation when you don't have chief diversity officers involved. And that white paper, for anyone who's looking, can be found on the ASE website too.
Yeah, we need to figure out how to be part of those rooms, how to speak to those rooms and voice our concerns, because 50 organizations present, 0 folks in that representation. That's scary.
It's very scary when you think about the bias that exists
Yes, exactly.
and that voices are being unheard.
Yeah.
That means someone else is making decisions for us.
Yeah, and it's not even on the radar. It's not even being able to voice the opinion of, hey, this sounds like a risk, or hey, I don't know about this. This sounds a little dodgy. Yeah, it's not even on the radar.
Yeah.
And so just like strategy, finance, market, all this stuff is on top of lists. AI and risk management has to be on top of lists now as well. It's just not something that is
Absolutely
cool and trendy. It's something that needs to be part of the scope of work, whether that's mentioning it, the risk, the liability for the companies. And I'm talking both small and big corporations, and how your corporation is using
and I
it.
think that, if I had anything to say to those that are listening today, it's that the call to action is to find out who is sitting on those boards within your organization.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just find that out. Who are the folks on there? How are they selecting them? Were they self-selected? Were they nominated? Can anyone participate? What's the accountability? What's the transparency with the conversations being had? But if there's just one takeaway, it's just start to find out who's in those committees.
Yeah, that's a great start. Ruby. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's a very well needed news, or that's very needed news.
So I know that we're at the top of our half hour. Anything you want to close out with, Yovana?
For folks who use Meta platforms, your Facebooks, your WhatsApp, your Instagrams, I was trying to find the article. I didn't save it. They are going to start everything's fair game on there. Your posts, your videos, even your captions, your wording, it's all up for grabs, and they're using it to study your AI algorithms. So be on the lookout if you end up having to do something like, yes, I agree, and then like you annoyingly hit agree instead of reading through all of the legal legal language. Just make sure that you are being very aware, or also change your privacy settings, because they are using anything and everything to change or to train their AI bots. They're saying that what's not being seen are your direct messages to your family and your friends or whoever else you DM to. I mean, how much are we really believing that? That's up to you. But
yeah,
but just
if they have access to everything else.
Yeah, but just
can you opt out of that, Yovana?
They were saying, that's why I was trying to find the article. They had talked about going into privacy settings. But I don't know if there's something specifically where you can be like, I still want to use your app, but I don't want you to do anything. Like, don't look at me. I don't think that's the way these apps work at all.
Yeah.
So they're going to have
I'm really curious.
Yeah, they're going to have some type of hold on your information. Now, how much hold are they going to have? Supposedly nothing in your DMs, but I mean, it's a free game now. So just be very, very mindful and very careful about what not only are you putting out there, but also what you're consuming. Because if they're training their AI bots, which they had mentioned, like it was for virtual assistants, but no, it's to make sure that they keep on having you see content that's very relatable, relevant, marketing to you, right? For the marketing dollars, for you spending more money on there, more time on there. Like my Instagram experience is going to be different than Ruby's Instagram experience, and they make sure that it stays that way. And so, yeah, just it's out there. If they've said it, that it's up, that your information is up for grabs on Meta throughout all their platforms. So just be careful with all that.
All right. Well, that's it for this week's edition. So stay in the loop. I'll put some posts in here afterwards. I'll share some of those photos. Yovana, let us know when your visualization comes out so we can post and share that on LinkedIn too. I know you for those of you who aren't already on there, make sure to subscribe to that newsletter, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. Thanks for joining us today.
Bye, everyone.